I'm Jay,
And I'm Dawn.
and welcome to the Pulse of the East.
Yeah, happy almost New Year's Eve, everyone.
That's right.
Talk about new beginnings, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
Speaking of new beginnings, we have a small change in store for all of our listeners.
Okay.
You will now hear Evan's voice taking over the news headlines.
That's right. Evan, take it away.
Thanks, guys. But before I continue, I would like to apologize for my wonky voice, but not to worry, my voice will improve eventually. So now, hi and welcome to your Asian News Briefing, where we will be breaking down the headlines that has happened from December 29th to 30 in the region. Let's dive straight in. First we go to the Korean Peninsula, starting off with South Korea, which is facing a turbulent period marked by a devastating aviation disaster and political turmoil. With the impeachment of both President Yoon Suk-yeol and former acting President and Prime Minister Han Duck-soo by the opposition-controlled National Assembly, Deputy Prime Minister and now, both acting President and acting Prime Minister, Choi Sang-mok has taken the reins of the highest position in the land. The country's constitutional court will convene to eventually talk about the impeachment cases of both President Yoon and Prime Minister Han. A Jeju Air flight from Bangkok crashed at Muin International Airport, killing 179 people in South Korea's worst aviation disaster in decades. Investigations suggest a bird strike in adverse weather, with questions raised about mechanical failures. Despite the political uncertainties, acting President Choi has promised transparency, ordering inspections of Boeing 737-800 aircraft. The tragedy has overwhelmed victim identification efforts, compounding the grief of families. The Jeju Air CEO has recently apologized for the incident. The country's Ministry of Land and Transport will be operating an integrated support center for the families of the victims of the incident. This convergence of crises, disaster, political instability, is testing South Korea's resilience and governance. We go now up north, where Pyongyang is taking a hostile stance against the U.S., advancing its military capabilities and deepening ties with Russia, while maintaining a dismissive approach to diplomacy. Kim Jong-un has vowed to implement the toughest anti-U.S. policy, labeling the U.S. a reactionary state and opposing its trilateral alliance with South Korea and Japan. This marks a significant escalation in hostility, coinciding with Donald Trump's return to the U.S. presidency. North Korea is ramping up weapons tests, aiming to improve nuclear missile reliability and defense technology. Kim has also stressed strengthening soldiers' mental resilience, underscoring a broader military buildup. North Korea is increasing military collaboration with Russia, which had already sent over 10,000 troops and weapons to support the war in Ukraine, with an estimated 3,000 in casualties. This partnership could provide North Korea with advanced weapons in exchange for its aid, complicating efforts to limit its nuclear ambitions. Kim views past negotiations with the U.S. as futile, citing them as proof of American hostility. He justifies North Korea's nuclear expansion as essential for self-defense, signaling little interest in diplomacy. Families in South Korea remain concerned about relatives detained in North Korea, including missionaries and defectors held for over a decade with little information about their well-being. In summary, North Korea is intensifying its military efforts, fostering closer ties with Russia, and adopting a hardened anti-U.S. stance, while human rights abuses persist, exacerbating regional and global concerns. We now move to Southeast Asia, starting with Cambodia, which is grappling with the fallout of a controversial surrogacy scheme, highlighting legal, ethical, and international concerns. 13 Filipino women, imprisoned for participating in a surrogacy scheme, were pardoned and repatriated to Manila. Convicted of attempted cross-border human trafficking, they had been sentenced to 4 years in prison. At the time of repatriation, 10 of the women were pregnant, and 3 brought their babies home. Cambodian courts ruled the women intended to sell babies to a third person for money, classifying the act as human trafficking. Cambodia bans commercial surrogacy under its 2016 law, considering it exploitative and illegal. Despite the ban, surrogacy remains in demand, especially from China, where couples reportedly pay $40,000 to $100,000 to agencies. The Philippine Foreign Department has cautioned citizens that surrogacy in Cambodia is illegal and punishable. Unlike Cambodia's explicit prohibition, the Philippines lacks laws regulating surrogacy, creating opportunities for abuse. The repatriated women are now housed in a government shelter for trafficking victims. In summary, Cambodia's actions emphasize its strict stance on surrogacy as human trafficking, while the situation exposes the challenges posed by differing legal frameworks and persistent demand for surrogacy services. Next, we go to the Philippines, which is managing several pressing issues across various sectors. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. signed the 2025 national budget of 6.326 trillion pesos, vetoing 194 billion pesos in projects deemed unaligned with government priorities. Public works projects were significantly affected, and unprogrammed appropriations surged to nearly 10% of the total budget. Tensions in the South China Sea persist, with a U.S. Navy ship and a China Coast Guard vessel patrolling near Panadag Shoal, also known as Scarborough Shoal. China's PLA stated its patrols aim to strengthen control, while the U.S. presence underscores its regional interest. The Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines is addressing bird strike risks near the Manila airport due to climate change, emphasizing regular aircraft maintenance and runway compatibility checks. This follows heightened concerns after a fatal plane crash in South Korea linked to possible bird strike. A fourth impeachment complaint against Vice President Sara Duterte is anticipated, while lawmakers seek to investigate the spread of fake news on social media. The country is dealing with heavy rains from multiple weather systems, rising firecracker injuries, and 418 holiday road crashes reported by the Department of Health. In summary, the Philippines is navigating budgetary challenges, human trafficking concerns, maritime tensions, aviation safety risks, political controversies, and seasonal domestic issues, reflecting a dynamic mix of priorities. Going back to East Asia, China is currently focused on domestic advancements and strategic international actions. China has unveiled a prototype for the world's fastest high-speed train, capable of 450 kilometers per hour, as part of plans to expand its railway network to 200,000 kilometers by 2035, including 70,000 kilometers of high-speed rail. The China Coast Guard and PLA conducted patrols around Scarborough Shoal, asserting territorial claims in the South China Sea. These actions underscore China's commitment to defend national sovereignty and security in a contested region with overlapping claims. China has resisted U.S.-led UN sanctions against North Korea while aligning with nations opposed to U.S. policies. This highlights China's strategic partnerships and its role in a complex global power dynamic. In summary, China is advancing its infrastructure, asserting territorial claims, and navigating a complex geopolitical landscape marked by tensions with the U.S. and support for allies like North Korea. And finally, we go to South Asia and Afghanistan, where the country faces critical challenges under the Taliban's restrictive policies, particularly targeting women and NGOs. The Taliban announced the closure of all national and foreign NGOs employing women, citing non-compliance with Islamic dress codes. Non-compliant organizations risk losing their licenses, severely restricting women's workforce participation. Female aid workers are increasingly barred from their duties, undermining vital humanitarian operations. Despite Taliban claims of support for aid work, interference with NGO activities continues, worsening the crisis in an already fragile nation. Afghan women face bans from most jobs, public spaces, and education beyond 6th grade. A new order mandates obscured windows in buildings to prevent views into areas where women might be present, further limiting women's visibility and freedoms. Taliban control measures. These actions reflect the Taliban's broader agenda to dominate societal and organizational functions, using measures like NGO closures to assert authority and enforce ideological conformity. In summary, the Taliban's decision to shut down NGOs employing women deepens Afghanistan's humanitarian crisis and exacerbates widespread restrictions on women, compounding the nation's socio-economic challenges. And before I end this news rundown for the past 2 days, as of the posting of this video, celebrations are now underway in many parts of the world as they gear up in welcoming 2025. That's all for this Asian news briefing. We will continue to monitor these stories and bring you updates as they unfold. Continue to stay tuned to the Pulse of the East for more, and we hope to see you in the next one.